Welcome back to The Biggest Talk. For all you listeners tuning in for the first time, we break down some of the most influential bestsellers of our generation and read them so you don't have to. We are your hosts,
Ira,
Sebastian,
and Harrison.
For today's podcast, we're going to start off Broke Millennial by Erin Lowry, and we're going to go over some budgeting tips that she has for everyone.
Yeah, so a main key on budgeting is most people don't do it, right?
I can afford everything.
Yeah, no, people don't know where their money's going, and why is that? Because nobody budgets, I feel.
And that's why I think I can afford everything. Because what people don't understand is just because you have the certain dollar amount in the bank account as a sum of your checking and your savings, it doesn't necessarily mean you can afford something. You can have $6,000 total to your name and go out
And
buy something worth $6,000,
Yeah.
but that doesn't necessarily mean you afford it. And then I feel like that's the hurdle that a lot of people try to get over, and they don't understand is just because they have the amount of money, it doesn't mean that they can afford something. And that's a really hard concept for people to wrap their head around.
It's because a lot of people nowadays, when they're growing up, they don't have any responsibilities to budget their money, you know? During high school, my dad changed it. Like, before I used to ask, Dad, can I have some money for this and this? Okay, give me the money. And he's like, Dad,
Give me that.
my car needs gas. All right, here's the money. But later on, to help me learn some value with budgeting, what he did is he changed my allowance. So first of all, what he did is he had me come home. We had a talk. He's like, son, I want you to go think by yourself for a few minutes and come up with a budget for how much money you need each week. And you need to have a reason for each of these values for the things, right? And then from now on, that's going to be your budget per the week. And so he had me come up with my own budget and reasoning, and then that was my allowance for the week from then on.
Super dope by Papa Ira, by the way.
Yeah, and I feel like this is something that a lot of people should do nowadays, because if your kid doesn't know the value of money, when they're out on their own, they're going to think if I have the money, like you said, that they can afford it, which clearly isn't the case. Like, as you become an adult, there's going to be more things that you need to pay for. You got to have taxes. You're going to have maybe your house, rent.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that you just don't account for, and you have to have that buffer. That's what we say, like, set it, like Erin Lowry talks about. It's like you have to set aside a certain amount of cash.
Exactly. I mean, you're going to be paying for things that you didn't even know that you had to pay for that week.
And you just can't, even no matter how hard you try to calculate it, you're going to miss some things. So you have to have that buffer. And like you were saying, like, oh, if you have $6,000 in the bank account, you can't just spend $6,000. You can spend barely a fraction of that, right?
It's definitely really difficult for people to understand that not only do they have to save their money, but they have to spend within their means.
Yeah.
You know, and then spending within your means, like what does spending within your means mean, you know?
Yeah,
and
because it's different for everybody.
Exactly. And when you get a budget together, when you're setting aside a certain amount of your paycheck, you know, for investments, a certain percentage of your paycheck for your savings, and then your pocket money, like what are you going to spend, what are you going to eat, right, for that month, your expenses, people begin to see that, oh, all of a sudden they don't have a whole lot of money to spend. And spending within your means is being able to go out and purchase something while maintaining those certain percentages of investments and savings, right?
Yeah.
So I think what's really interesting is that people don't necessarily teach their kids that so much anymore. I mean, of course, there are exceptions, like your father, Ira. And, you know, even personally for me, that's something that I didn't have as a really early lesson in my life, but I am beginning to understand the importance of budgeting.
And also the school system doesn't teach us this.
Right, especially not. So, you know, when it comes to real life, and money is a very real factor in real life, right? So, like, what are some ways, you know, or what are some, like, percentages that people might have some success with? Because I know not everybody wants to put all their money in saving. People do want to splurge and spend, but, you know, spend responsibly, right?
Well, like we said, it's really different for everyone. Like, for me personally, you know, I have a roof over my head that I don't have to pay for.
Right.
I get food on the table that I don't have to pay for. So for me, like, yeah, I could go out, eat out all the time, and, like, go spend money and be like, oh, I'm spending half my paycheck. But for me personally, I know I don't need to do that.
Right.
I honestly can save pretty much all of it except for gas, right? Like expenses like that. But since I have a roof and I have food, you know, the only other necessity is transportation. So for me, I can save like 80% of my paycheck to live within my means. Even if I could fake myself out like, oh, I'm only spending half of it, but I don't need to. It's about what you really need, what satisfies those basic necessities.
Right. And then you mentioned, you know, living with your parents or family, essentially. Like, you see now you see it's very common in our generation, be like, oh, I'm 18, I'm moving out, you know, I'm gonna get my own
very common.
apartment, I'm gonna get my own car, my own job, go to school, right, and work part-time school, part-time job. Like I used to be in the same mentality of like, oh, you know, screw this, and I'm out of here. I'm gonna be my own. I'm gonna go do my own thing, right? Until you really look at the numbers and you're like, man, right? So like, why do you think it's such a common theme that this happens? It's because people don't understand, you know, the meaning behind their words. What exactly are they signing up for when they do move out? And something that's a really good tip that she gives is kind of like, you have to understand where every dollar is going. Yeah. And then in order to become a successful budgeter, in order to become successful with money, you have to understand what all the information there is about your money, right? So when you're budgeting, how much are you budgeting? What is your goal? You talked about an emergency fund, right? So like if you have a goal of, let's say, $12.50 by the end of the year, I want $12.50 by the end of the year so I can have that as an emergency fund, some sort of cushion, right? Well, then in 2019 I need to save $125 a month, right, essentially, and in order to come close to that goal. I'll probably achieve it and then some, right? But in order to take massive action with your goals, you have to set them first, and you have to know exactly what you're aiming for. Otherwise, you're not going to aim at all, right?
That's the thing that's hard for people. Is Sebastian, you were talking about how you saw the roof over your head and food on the table, which was supplied for you, as a reason for you to be able to save. You know.
Yeah.
With a lot of kids nowadays, well, kids, we still technically are kids, but a lot of kids, other kids nowadays, they see it as a reason, as a time to enjoy and spend, you know?
Totally.
They don't.
Yeah, it's difficult because when you have that security, you know, you feel like there's nothing like wrong that would happen if you spend your money because there's no reason to be scared.
Yeah, I'm gonna go into a little more personal here, like. With
Story time with Ira.
If you guys look on our channel, a few videos back, these two actually went to Florida, Sebastian and Harrison, but I did not. When they were planning out Florida, Sebastian and Harrison planned out everything. Harrison came up with a price. Sebastian gave him the money, which was easier for him because he had spent his time saving ever since he got his job. You know, so he had that money accumulated there, which he had saved, which made it easier for him to
make that decision.
Right. Meanwhile, me, when I first started working out, I did not do a very good job saving my money. You know, I saw the paycheck, and I saw it as
all the things that you could buy with the paycheck.
Exactly. You know, I could see, I could go do this now instead of that now. You know, I wouldn't have to rely on my parents as much to like give me money for certain things to buy. See, that's where I had the wrong mindset. I shouldn't have taken it as like I can spend my money on my own now. I should have taken it as like how Sebastian did. It's like he has the necessities he needs, so thus he doesn't need to spend his money.
Yeah, you don't need to increase your lifestyle with the increase of money that's coming in, right?
Exactly. Some people, like you say, some people see it as a increase in lifestyle because they're getting a check now, but they're still living in the same house, eating the same food, you know? Yeah. So they should keep their money the same spending level. You know, right. If I had done that, I would have had a ton more money saved right now, and I would have been able to.
Right, and you probably would have been able to.
But also, you know, you also think that when you spend your money, you spend it on your family, you spend it on your girlfriend because you want to make these people happy. Yeah. And it's a tough battle to face, right? Because for me personally, I don't spend that much money on my girlfriend. Sorry. But for me, I have a different goal, you know, like for me, I want to give my girlfriend or my future wife a lifestyle that she could be grateful for instead of, you know, the satisfaction today we go out to dinner.
Definitely.
It's all about trying to build that lifestyle now, even though it might seem very stingy at this point, but it's really for down the line, you know, and it might not work out 100% of the time, but that's kind of how I see it differently, I guess.
But I mean, you'll always be in a better position to, make any decision with money. I mean, something that I've learned is that it's a lot better to have monies with or it's a lot better to have problems with money versus problems because you don't have money, right? And then I just think, you know, that whole saying of like, oh, more money, more problems, right? Like, yeah, that's probably true, but then more money, more solutions at the same time, right?
Yeah.
Versus like you're kind of stuck and then you can't pay for something. Let's say your kid broke your arm and then the x-ray bill is like
your kid broke your arm.
I don't know what goes on at home, all right, guys?
Yeah, you don't know.
I'm not advocating domestic violence. But let's just say some sort of accident happened and your kid broke your arm and then you need to pay for an x-ray.
Yeah.
All right, it's $400 and then you don't have $400. Like, what are you going to do with your broken arm?
Exactly.
Right?
Gonna
like,
work with one arm.
Exactly. So you have to find a way to get over that problem versus if you have, problems with money, it's like, okay, well, how do I cut down my taxes this year, right? All of a sudden, you're not focused on these should have been taken care of necessities. You're focusing on, okay, well, I have X amount of money. How do I maintain my luxuries?
Yeah.
Right, when it goes to that point.
Well, coming back to budgeting, I always thought about this when I was first budgeting. I was like, why doesn't everybody do this? It's like, if you think about every business model, like even working at Chipotle, it's like they have a set amount that they're going to make. They see where their money's going. They see where the products are going. They're making sure nothing gets wasted. They have all that down to the penny, right? So why don't we? Like,
Exactly.
And they're successful. So why don't we if we want to be successful?
Right. And then I think something that's interesting is, like your example at Chipotle, like they know exactly how much one scoop of guacamole costs them. Right. And then people just don't. This is my problem in the beginning when I first got a credit card was I was just kind of like, oh, $500 on my credit line. OK, it's $2 here, $2 there, $10 here, $15 there. And then all of a sudden it's only halfway through the month and I'm maxed out on my credit line. I'm like, wait a minute, I've already spent $500. I haven't even bought that much. But when you really put the numbers together, all the little things, they will add up.
Yeah.
Right. And then you don't all of a sudden are not prepared for whatever comes next. Let's say you can't afford your credit card bill that month, and then all of a sudden you're stuck with interest, right? And then you're paying rolling interest, which is like the worst trap you can ever find yourself in. So people really have to identify what their dollars are going to and just give each dollar in their bank account a name. Otherwise, it's going to disappear.
And also
right?
don't assume like to micromanage every little thing.
Yeah,
of course.
You do have to set the standard and the disciplines of setting a certain amount for certain necessities, right? Or like you have like $50 for eating out or whatever your budget is. You have to set that line, because if you don't, then you're just all willy-nilly, and then at the end of the month you're oh shoot,
right, you have to set boundaries for yourself, otherwise you find yourself crossing them.
Sometimes you don't even need to come up with like, okay, 50% here, 25% there, there's one question which my dad always tells me. He's like, before you buy something, ask yourself, do I really need this?
Right.
Or what is the value of it? Like I was talking about before with you guys, it's like when I go out to eat, it's like, a meal for me is like $12-13. I'm like, did I stand at work for an hour to eat this?
Exactly.
And no, I didn't, but did I stand at work for an hour to get those $12 to go invest it to turn it into more money? Yeah, sure. That makes it more valuable. That's more valuable to me than eating.
Right.
So you have to kind of see it as how much time did you spend for this instead of how much money, because we don't have that kind of connection so much with the piece of paper.
And I mean, like, sometimes we'll go out to eat and this fool doesn't even order anything. He's just chilling there with the ice water, just watching us eat. But like, it just, I mean, you have to respect the discipline in that sense. And it's something that you yourself have to adopt. Like, even if it sucks, like something for me I find really hard is dieting, is because when I go visit my girlfriend, me and my girlfriend are long distance. When I go visit my girlfriend, I don't want to be on a diet and be like, okay, well, I can't eat this, I can't eat that, because I want to enjoy myself.
Yeah,
and
you
I
want to enjoy
this,
your
like,
time.
little vacation.
Yep.
But I find myself having to maintain the same discipline, otherwise I'm not going to gain any results, because I can't spend 2 weeks eating whatever I want and then expect to lose weight when I come back.
Yeah.
Right? So yeah, there's going to be sacrifices that you have to make when you are budgeting. There are going to be certain things that you have to give up, like Ira said, with what you really need versus what you want, because in this life we want a lot of things.
For
right?
sure.
But we need very little.
And I think
So.
that goes right into our next point of getting financially naked with your partner. But you're going to have to watch the next episode for that.
Thank you all for tuning in. If there's anything that you guys liked, please leave a comment in the section below and give this video a thumbs up. And if you haven't subscribed already, please subscribe, and we'll see you next week.
Let's go out and get this bread.